Welcome. You're tuned into Life is a Sacred Journey. Every week, we bring a new perspective to aging and caregiving. Here is your host, Micheal Pope. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you out there in the virtual neighborhood of Life is a Sacred Journey. It is always my honor every Friday at 8 a.m. to join you here on this platform. I can't believe it's been over 16 months since we took Life is a Sacred Journey from a podcast to this platform where you get to see me. I have to put on makeup and all of that. But I want to thank you for coming and being a part of this wonderful community that we are growing. We're going to be using a new platform called Spreaker or something like that. Felicia found in the next couple of weeks. And so you will learn more about that. And I'm just so thankful for all of you, and happy Friday and good morning. So thank you for joining us. Do What Matters Most by Rob and Steve Shallenberger. And this is the most important part. Lead with a vision, manage with a plan, prioritize your time. You know, I've been a CEO now, I think 8 years, but been a manager almost my entire career. And one of the hardest parts of being a manager, particularly if you're multitasking and you're like a jack of all trades in your organization, if it's a nonprofit, you have to lead with a vision and manage and set priorities, or you will spin and spiral into the stratosphere and accomplish nothing. And then you have people in your organization that are following your lead, and then it just becomes a chaotic where everybody comes to work feeling no sense of accomplishment. So Steve is going to tell us all about that and his book. I'm going to tell you what I love about this book more than anything else. I told you all this, you know this about me. I even write in my Bible, believe it or not. I mean, like I write notes in my Bible with the date that I read something. And then when I go back and read it again, it's like, oh my gosh, I've grown from this moment. I have a Bible that I do that. And then I have the family Bible that, of course, I don't do that. But at the end of the day, you can write in this. And that is good too, because when we write and read, we remember. Write, read, remember. That is the way we learn. So Steve and Rob have put together a book that can become a workbook. You can bring it into your organization and have a book group around it and plan around it. And I think it's also good for your personal life, because there's a chapter in here about that as well. So we're going to get started on this in a minute, but I want to tell you a little bit about my new friend. First of all, he's from the Bay Area. Grew up over the bridge from me in Vallejo. So I just found that out in our pre-conversation, and has businesses in the Bay Area that work with energy services for families in their homes and low-income families. So you can see nobody comes to Life is a Sacred Journey by accident. You know, we're all servants, right? So let me read a little bit about Steve. Again, Steve was raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. He now lives in Utah, where he has lived for about 49 years and loves Utah. So that makes sense to me because it's such a beautiful, beautiful state. He graduated from Brigham Young University with an accounting degree and then went on to Harvard Business School. So we have a lot in common because, as you all know, I went to Boston University. And so he has led numerous civic organizations, which include serving as president of the Brigham Young University Alumni Association, president of America's Freedom Festival, and chairman of the Utah Young Presidents Organization, a worldwide organization of CEOs. Steve is the author of the national best-selling book, Becoming Your Best, The 12 Principles of Highly Successful Leaders. I have that coming. It's on its way from Amazon. I should have it by tomorrow. So I will be reading that as well. And he has worked with individuals and organizations throughout the world on becoming their best. Operative word, their best. Not the best like somebody down the road, but their personal best. And then how to bring those personal bests together for a collective best. Their newest book is Do What Matters. It's a revolutionary, cutting-edge approach to modern-day time management. Remember all those time management classes to all the baby boomers back in the 70s? I took them. Oh my gosh, they were amazing, right? You had to have all these grids, and you spent more time keeping your time management program than you did doing what you wrote in it. It was amazing, but it helped. So this is a book that helps us to be productive and helps us to look at our vision. Steve has been an opinion columnist in CEOWORLD, as well as numerous other publications and insights. He is passionate about helping others be their successful best in their life and at home. And this I love more than anything else. Everything else, it comes to this. He has 6 children and 21 grandchildren. So welcome my new friend, my new BFF, Steve Shallenberger, to Life is a Sacred Journey. It's so great to have you here this morning.
Oh, thank you, Micheal. And oh my goodness, isn't it a delight to be with Micheal? She is a breath of fresh air. And occasionally in life, you connect with someone or meet someone that you just feel an attraction to. And that's how I felt about Micheal. I'm telling you, I just had an unusual enthusiasm looking forward to this, but in visiting with Micheal ahead of time, congratulations to you on what you're doing. And I do feel a connect. And because I feel a connect with you, it also means that I'm honored to be here with your listeners as well, because I feel a connect with them through you. And so I look forward to the time we'll spend together, and hopefully it can benefit all of us. I can tell you already, I've already benefited from it.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here with you. And I'm gonna cut right to the chase. Let's get started. And if you have any comments, any questions as we go forward, put them in the chat. I'll be looking at my phone in a few minutes, but I want to get this time started because I have some questions, and there's some things written in the book that I think if we thought about more, we would be our excellent best without having to compare ourselves to anyone else. So, Steve, when you talk about vision, you know, there are those of us, I do a vision board every year, you know, all of that kind of stuff. But vision, you are talking more about vision meaning purpose. I mean, that's what I got when it's sort of like examining oneself to identify what your gifts and strengths are, therefore identifying your purpose, therefore living out your vision. So can you take us on that journey, how you lead with a vision and how you thought that you had to start with this in the book even?
Okay, well, that's great, Micheal. Perhaps it'd be a good idea to start back how this all, for me anyhow, got started.
The evolution, yes.
So early on in my career, I started my first company when I was 26, and it was a marketing company. And at 27, I bought my first company, which was a publishing and a printing firm. And within a few years, we had 700 employees, and they would come and say, you know, how can I be a top sales rep, or how can I be a top manager? And I thought I could give a few answers, but I knew there was a lot I did not know. And so I decided to begin a research that I thought would take a few years. It ended up taking over 40 years by the time I finished it. And what I was looking for is what set apart high-performing individuals and teams from everybody else. Okay. And I interviewed over 150 CEOs around the world, studied the lives of historical figures that have made our world a better place. Okay. And what we discovered, Micheal, is that none of these people were perfect, and yet we saw over and over 12 things that they did that created this excellence that set them apart from everybody else. And that's what we put in the book, Becoming Your Best, the 12 Principles of Highly Successful Leaders, because we found that these were timeless and universal principles that if you did them, they created excellence. Okay. And so this is what we started teaching around the world, and we're so fortunate to have a great reception to it. And as we went through this, we noticed that 3 of these particularly were habits that created excellence in terms of personal transformation and leadership, being more effective in terms of high performance. And so those three principles that these highly successful leaders did were lead with the vision. If you look around, every wonderful leader, Martin Luther King, John F. Kennedy, Mahatma Gandhi, Abe Lincoln, I mean, you go through them, they created a vision. And whether it's a large organization or a team or a family, the principles still apply. When you create that vision, it's like you said, Micheal, now it brings out within you what your purpose is, what your passion is. And no longer are you looking to others or, one of the great quotes that we like is you either lead your life by design or you will live a life by default.
Ooh, yes.
And so this is, once you have a vision, you start leading a life by design, including your own life, including your relationships and your work. And so this is the starting point. So this book has 3 high performance habits aligned with those 3 principles: lead with the vision, manage with the plan, and prioritize your time. And so what are the habits that really anybody can master? It is having a personal vision. That's one of the habits. That's what you were just talking about.
Yes.
And it embodies your passion, your purpose, why you're here. And it's different for every single one of us. Yeah. The second is the habit of having annual goals, but in a very specific way, because it's answering this question. I love the name of your show. Life is a sacred journey. Yes. Isn't that wonderful? Well, yes. When you think about it, we only have one shot at 2021. We'll only have one shot at the next year, and never again will it come. So once you have a vision, now you're down that pathway and saying, okay, that's the direction. Well, your annual goals are, what will I do this year that represents the best within me? And I am suggesting, and I know you already know this, and your listeners will intuitively feel this as well. And that is, you're going to say, personally, what's the most important thing I can do? How about in my relationships with my family? And how about professionally? What's the very best I can do? And when people start getting this, and I might add, this is both a mindset, in other words, how you think, right? But it's also a skill set of knowing how to write goals. And maybe we can get into that in a second. And then the last one is how to prioritize your time. The high performance habit is something we call pre-week planning. Taking a few minutes during the weekend before the week starts, and in a very specific way, by thinking of your roles in life, what are the actions you can take in combination with commitments that you have that create a great week. And this is where the rubber meets the road. So it's vision, here's the direction. What are my goals for the year? And now, how do I execute on those? And so it's really pretty straightforward. But when someone masters these 3 habits, it puts them in a class of their own. We see this over and over again. But so that's it. You're spot on, Micheal. Well, you have a vision. That's the starting point.
But then we've also developed habits that are counterintuitive. So we become aware that we need to do certain things, and we get caught up in habits that we've built along the way that interfere, like procrastination and all of these kinds of things. But we can reset.
Absolutely. Yeah. And getting back to the theme of your show, that's why I'm so connected to it, is these 3 high performance habits recognize how sacred life is. And what a privilege it is to wake up today. And so how do I make this great today? And you start thinking now about this title, Do What Matters Most, in connection with life as a sacred journey. Well, you don't want to waste your time doing the wrong things. You want to do what matters most. And what matters most is our health and our energy and being at peace and happy, right? It's having close relationships that bring joy and satisfaction and not huge stress and conflict. But these three things help achieve that. And in work, making a difference.
Yes.
And how do you really make a contribution so that at the end of the day, you say, you know what? I may not be able to change the world, but I can change my world. Yes. And in the process, it leaves a better world. And so these are really connected. What we're talking about today, it's a specific set of things you can do, but they enhance this sacred journey of life. They make it wonderful.
Yes. And as I said in my show or the podcast last week, that leads to inner peace. Therefore, you can have joy. Because when you're procrastinating and you don't have a to-do list, then you're kind of just waiting for stuff to happen. And then you become this reactionary person to everything. And then you can imagine if you live your work life that way, your personal life that way, and your relationships that way, then you really are becoming a chaotic being and you're just treading. And there's no movement. So, I mean, and I've been there. I mean, again, sure. This is not about judgment of anyone, but this is about how do we move from those places of stuckness and to this place where we can live out our most sacred journey. So you talk about the 5 steps, you review the vision, identifying our roles, but can you talk about SMART goals? I know there's many of us who know about SMART goals, but then the implementation after we review them, or we review them with, how do I want to say that? We review them once a year and we're all good with it. And then as time goes on, we go right back to whatever, because we were actually more comfortable in that space. So can you talk about how to set those SMART goals and then how to hold on tight to them so that
Sure.
you can?
Okay, yeah. That's a great question. And I think it's helpful to say for your listeners, I'm not just touting the book, but I want your listeners to know that there's a clear outline in this book of why it's helpful on each of the 3 high performance habits, why they're helpful. But then there's a follow-up chapter on how to do it.
Yes.
And it just clearly outlines how each one of your listeners and me and you can create an inspiring personal vision. And one of the things we recommend that's a common thread through all 3 is first to identify and think about your roles in life. We all share a common one in personal, finance, health, emotion, spiritual. That's a common role, right? But also family and friends would be another role. Professional, maybe a son or a daughter, church or civic, service. Work, you may have a couple, right? You may have your podcast and your Facebook Live and whatever medium you're using. That's one role in itself. And so that's the starting point. And you can think, well, your personal vision, what is my vision for each one of the roles? Well, then we skip down. And by the way, to Micheal's point, once you have your personal vision draft, you do want to keep it in front of you, but you basically have it for life. You may make some tweaks, but you got it. Now, annual goals, of course, you do once a year. So I want to just share a statistic that is stunning. There's a couple. One is, I always ask people, how many have had New Year's resolutions before? Everybody raise their hand. And then I say, okay, do you all know what January 15th is?
The day we break them?
Yes, it is. 80% of people throw out their New Year's resolutions. They already quit on them by January 15th. So what we're going to do is throw those out forever and show you a way that you can set a process that makes a difference, that really impacts your life. So you talked about some of these things, SMART goals. So here are a few things you can do. On your annual goals, just get a sheet of paper and put your roles down on a column. The very same roles that you use for your vision. Personal, which we all share. It could be a spouse, significant other, family, but you'll come up with yours, right? 5 to 7. And think now of this year. And now here's the statistic I wanted to share. You are 90% more likely to accomplish something with clearly written goals. Now that is, wow, 90%? Yeah, it's big time. But get this. I know Micheal knows this one, but I'm going to share it anyhow for all of us. Only 10% of us have clearly written goals. Now, if you're a leader or if you're a parent and you're trying to influence other people, you're going to want to teach them how to have clearly written goals, because you know if they do, they're 90% more likely to accomplish it. Yes. And if it's not written, guess what's going to happen, friends? Nada. You got it, because life gets too busy.
Yeah.
And it just gets pushed aside. And so how can you do that? Well, Micheal talked about the SMART acronym. Yes. Some of you may have used it. It stands for, the goals should be these written goals. It's a skill set.
Yep.
Should be specific. And the more specific, the more likely you are to accomplish it. Measurable, so you know whether you did it or not. And it should be achievable. So it causes you to stretch. It's inspirational, but doesn't discourage you. It should be relevant to your vision, and last of all, time specific. So let's just give you an example. And 2 words that you should really not use when you're writing goals is improved or better. No, don't do it, because they're too general and it won't impact your behavior. So here's an example. Let's say that your goal is under personal. You could say to do better on reading books. Bad goal. A good idea, bad goal. It's not written well. So what could you do to make it smart? You could say read 12 books on personal improvement by December 15th.
Wow.
Now that changes behavior. Yeah. Okay. And so then the last thing you can do once you have your goals like this, and this is a real change from the norm, is to share them with someone that you respect or care about. And so when you do this, it not only creates an accountability, you look at it a lot more seriously, but whoever that person is, it creates an emotional bond with you. And so what you do is you just say, hey, I've made some goals for the year, and I was wondering if I could share them with you. I'll send them to you. You don't have to do anything. Just put them in a folder or whatever, but I'll report how it went at the end of the year, along with my goals for the next year. Wow. And you're going to find, my friends, that now you're serious about it. And you're not going to throw them out by January 15th. And it's a pretty awesome process. It will bring out the best within you. Can I share an example?
Oh, no, please, please. This is Carolyn Wolf. Carolyn, I see your note here saying that you wish your son was watching this. Well, he can come back and watch it later, and you can buy him the book because, again, I do believe, funny you said that, Carolyn. I believe this book should actually be taught in high school, that we should get to high school students and get them in this habit of thinking about their future so that they're not living out the life of their parent. I'm sorry, I'm a parent. I know we do it. And that they are living out their vision and purpose, because then they would be happier. Boom. Because all of this leads to a happy, sacred life. It really does, because then you're not just waiting for the anvil to fall and you're running. It's like a cartoon, right? You've seen that cartoon where the character's just running, trying to keep. No, that creates anxiety, stress, depression, and no productivity, and that hurts our self-esteem. So share with someone. I love this. Sandy Blazer, you will get this, because you and I went on this health thing together, and we're doing it differently, but we're holding each other accountable in prayer and meditation and just checking in. So that is right on. Okay.
Yeah, you got it. Now,
go ahead,
spot on. What an inspiration. That was a good example.
Yeah.
When you get somebody else, all of a sudden you all grow together. I mean, it's an inspiration to them as well.
Yes.
And well, good for you. And you bring up a really wonderful point. You alluded to it earlier in the show today. But as a parent or even a grandparent, one of our most important duties and challenges is how do we put the right thoughts and ideas and inspiration into the minds of our children and offspring. And so what you're recommending, if a parent can help them get a vision, that is a game changer because they start going on their own power. So let me give a little example of this. We had little Bella, was 11. Bella's one of our granddaughters, and she has this idea. Now, this is a perfect example. She would like to be an author. Okay, that's a vision.
Right.
And so remember, if you can get the idea in here, woohoo, we've done a great service.
Right.
And so Rob, who is my son, by the way, let me just turn off that phone. Hold on.
Okay, no problem. Thank you all for joining us this morning at Life is a Sacred Journey. I have my wonderful new friend, Steve Shallenberger, with us, and we're talking about do what matters most. Lead with a vision, manage with a plan, prioritize your time. So go ahead there, Steve.
Okay, yeah. So thank you, Micheal. And so Rob, who is our oldest son, we have 5 boys and finally had a girl. Woohoo! Queen Anne. But Rob was working with Bella, and he says, okay, that's a good vision you have. You want to be an author. He asked the right question. This was in February. He said, so what are you going to do this year about that? And Bella looked back, and maybe in a moment of spontaneity, she said, well, I'm going to write a children's book. And so this is a good question for all of us, or imagine for our listeners, what would happen if Bella did not write it down? She just said it. What are her chances of actually doing it? She gets into school and soccer and lacrosse. No, it's going to go by the wayside. Yeah. But Rob said, okay, that's a good idea. What kind of children's book? She says, well, I'm going to do it on helping kids be better. And which I loved. I mean, I'm thinking, okay, go Bella. And he said, that's a good idea. What do you kind of have in mind? And she described it a full color book. And she says, I'm going to call it A to Z, the best in you and me. And she was going to take a attribute for each letter of the alphabet for children and what helps them be their best, right? And he said, okay, he said, how about, when do you want to do this by? She said, how about by December 20th? He said, okay. Now you can see, my friends, how this starts changing your thinking and everything. And Rob says, well, how about if we do it together? I'll help handle logistics. He said, you handle all of the writing and any of the creativity. And so Rob found an illustrator in India that did the entire book for $1,200. Wow. And so here it is.
Oh, wow.
And on December 15th, they finished it. She had to do 2 attributes per month so that she could stay with it. So, for example, attitude. And as you kind of go through it, they're pretty cool things here.
Yep. Yes, I saw the beautiful in the book. Yeah, in your book. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
So on December 15th, it was done, and Rob took it to the printers, and he said, I've never paid more for 2 books in my whole life. He said, I paid $50 a book. He said, but by December 20th, guess what came out?
That's right.
And
that's right.
Since then, the next week, they printed 1,000 books. And Bella has paid for all of her extracurricular activities, has a savings account, and she is now 17.
Oh,
and
wow.
She has done such a great job, but this has been great. Now, here is the point I'm making, is if an 11-year-old can do it, who else can do it?
We all can.
We can all do it. And it's just doing the right things. Right. And that is an example of having clearly written goals the SMART acronym, and this is all in the book. So
it is.
Yeah, you'll get it down, and you can do it. And Micheal and I'd like to give you encouragement. Yeah. Every one of you can become your best by doing these kind of things. Yeah. And it leads directly to happiness and joy. And it doesn't mean we don't have challenges in life. It doesn't mean COVID-19 won't happen or disasters, and which are so disheartening. That's right. But if you go back to lead a life by design, or you'll live a life by default, it makes a huge difference, because in your personal vision, you can write statements like, I handle adversity and setback with grace and faith. You know, you can describe how you do it. Yeah. And I smile and I have fun, and today's going to be a great day. Well, things happen, but we still have to make it a great day. So those are two of the high performance habits: your personal vision, the direction, and the goals for this year, which is an ongoing process every year that's shared. And then, of course, the third one is just taking a little time during the weekend to do pre-week planning by your roles. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I used to, during the weekend, I was getting closer and closer to Monday. I was getting stressed out because I knew so many things were coming. Yes. That doesn't happen anymore, because now I do this pre-week planning. It's a simple process, takes about 20 or 30 minutes, but it's around your roles and what actions you are going to take that matter most. Wow. And this is the whole spirit of doing what matters most. This is where it happens. I'll just give one quick example.
Please, because I know we're going to have to let you go to get back into your day, but this is such a wealth of information. You know, again, folks, I love lead a life by design, not by default. That to me is like, that says it all, because the journey is something that you want to experience. And when you're running from place to place, you cannot experience any of it. You're just doing. You're just in the doing of it. So this pre-week planning, 30 minutes out of everything that you do in your life, everything that you give to other people, 30 minutes to give to yourself. Remember, we talked about self-care, caregivers, even for caregivers. I'm thinking now, Steve, you know, the majority of the people I'm around are caregivers. If we sat down and took 30 minutes looking at the role of caregiving, separate from our other role as mother, father, but in the personal realm of what you were talking about, I'm not saying that the job would be easier in the sense that of what's happening to the individual, but they would not be so powerless. Do you agree with that, or am I making that up?
Oh, no, you are so spot on. Okay. Are you kidding? No, it takes you to another level. Yeah. Because now you've had the chance to really say, this is where I want to go, and it can happen. And so the very fact you're at that point for the first time, this is the simple illustration I'd like to give. Okay, cool. Because I think it illustrates just what you talked about. I was teaching a group of executives from Pepsi company, and we were talking about pre-week planning just like this, and gave them the little format. And there's a template that your listeners can use, right in the book, and shows you how to do it. You just go through it. I mean, you write it down. And I noticed one of the executives under his role as father wrote down, "Call my son." And I thought, okay, well, that's good. And he put it down Wednesday to do it. So first you come up with the action, then you say, when will I do it? And you sketch it out. And so you kind of really get to a sense of peace before you start the week. And I said, so why is that such a big deal? He said, because I haven't talked with my son in 7 years. And I said, what in the world happened? And he said, well, we were in an argument and we just haven't talked since. And I said, well, that is really a big time deal. Yeah. And I said, I'd recommend you put down his phone number there by 7 o'clock Wednesday when you're going to call your son. So no excuse here. You just do it. I was going to go back 6 months later and work with this group again. And I did. And the first guy I wanted to see was this man and see how it went. And so I went up to him. I said, well, did you do it? Did you call him? And he said, I sure did. And he said, you're not going to believe this. He said, we could not remember what the argument was about. And he says, it's changed my life. He said, I'm a better person. I'm a better executive. I'm happier. And he said, my son and I talk every single week now. Wow. He said, but it's far deeper than that. And I'd like to suggest that these 3 high performance habits are actually intergenerational. Talk about life as a sacred journey. Well, he said, I discovered I had 2 grandchildren I didn't know about. He said, they now have a grandpa and I have grandchildren. And so very cool. One little act. So the question I have reflected upon since then is this. Why didn't he call that son 3 years later or 5 years later? And the answer is, I think, Micheal, because once we just start living life, it's so easy to go week in and week out, and just responding to to-do lists and not reflecting on the roles that matter most.
Yes.
So that's all I've got to say. A little bit like
I got one last question that came up from a young person who is a Generation Zer, and they're saying, we use our phones. Are you suggesting that we move from the phone format or tablet format and write things down? My quick response, of course, is yes. But what is your insight on that?
Right. So, of course, we live in a whole different world than we did, before. And so I have my vision is in my device. I also have it printed out. I do have a paper planner, but I live a hybrid life. So I definitely have it in my device. I also have my annual goals in my device, but I also have them pasted into the front of my planner. There they are. And so it's kind of a hybrid world a little bit. And on pre-week planning, especially right now, we're developing a Google extension that actually ties right into Google Calendar, or we're working on one for Outlook as well. So you can do this pre-week planning electronically, but I do it also on the paper. And Rob, for example, he transfers then everything into his electronic calendar. That's all he uses. But it's the principle of prioritizing your time, and then you can figure out the way to do it. We've created a good template. We've spent thousands of hours of scientifically thinking about how can you do it that makes it easy. So you have a great question on that. And I would suggest just think about this little process. We have a weekly view at the top is where you think about your roles and what actions. That's leadership. Okay. The part below is management. When will I do it? The part above is, imagine a compass, and a compass tells you the right direction to go. Well, down below is the clock. How do I do it well? And the part up above there is effectiveness, doing the right things, do what matters most. Below is efficiency. How do I do it well? So I hope that's helpful.
I hope that is helpful. And so I can't thank you enough, Steve Shallenberger, for thank you for sending me the book. Thank you for sending me the wonderful notebook that came along with it. I appreciate that so much. And the beautiful note that you wrote to me inside. I'm very thankful. Rob, thank you. And folks, people, our community, we have to invest in ourselves. This is what I'm going to call all of this with this conversation today. This is an investment in yourself. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't. You heard Steve say, he studied other productive people, and we want mentors. I have mentors. I have people that I study and follow some of the habits of their lives, both spiritually and on a level as a nonprofit leader. But more importantly, the work that I'm doing is to enhance the inner person in myself so that I can be a better person in the world, be better in all of my roles. And therefore, I don't have to, I'm looking at other people, but I'm also looking at myself more.
Amen.
And so wow, what a gift that is. That doesn't mean I'm being egotistical, because, you know, we go negative all the time. Don't go negative. Go higher than that. It means that I'm owning my own power. And when I own my own power, then yes, I lean on other people, but my trajectory in life is laser sharp. And stuff can come in and out of it. That's what Steve is talking about in here. But because of pre-work, pre-week planning, having someone that you send your ideas to, all of that, you're going to live your dream. And isn't that what this is all about? Isn't that when we say life is a sacred journey? That's what it's all about, so that when you're at the end of life, you're not looking back and saying, I wish I had. We're all going to have a little bit of that if we have moments to think about it. But let's have a smaller list of I wish I had. If you take care of yourself, your bucket list becomes a reality and not a dream. So I want to thank my new friend, who I can't wait to meet in person. We are going to have him back on Life is a Sacred Journey, because I'm going to finish reading this, and the other book that was before this book is going to come to me, and I want to talk more about that, because I think he has a message that is bigger than just you thinking about becoming more productive to make more money, to have more things. It's about living a life that you can be happy about, not looking around going, oh, I'm happy that I have all this stuff. No, that you look inside and you say, I'm happy that I have lived out my vision. And if you're a leader, that you led with a vision, and that you prioritized your time so you don't run out of time chasing your life. So I want to thank you so much, Steve, for coming. And I hope that this experience has been one for you that you will think about later today and smile, because I know I will. And I hope to have you back on Life is a Sacred Journey to share more of what you've learned and your wisdom about all of this. And I hope you have a wonderful, blessed day. Thank you for coming.
Oh, Micheal, thank you. You are a gem.
Oh, thank you.
I mean to tell you. And what a delight to be with you, and a privilege to be with your community and listeners, and wishing you all the best. Thanks for the privilege of being with you. And I'd be delighted to stay in touch and to cultivate this wonderful friendship.
Yes, I think that's very important.
That girl right there.
Very important. And I'm going to say this last thing, because it just popped into my mind. This last year, there has been so much division in our world, and we have separated ourselves by skin color, by ethnicity, by what we think a person's lifestyle should be. This relationship right here is a prime example that a belief system, he and I have the same belief system, brought us together, and the joy that we have because we are embracing that belief system, and then we're just loving that we can bring our cultures together and our multicolor and all of that. So it can be done, good people. Don't get it twisted. Don't let anybody tell you it can't be done, because it can. Okay, it can. We can become a humanity. Have a great weekend. Take care of yourself. Hug your babies. Hug somebody. Hug a tree. But have a good day. Pet a dog. Take care.